Hey everyone, how's it going? Octopus here and welcome back to Union Cross. We're finally going to talk about the stained glass metals. I know I should have done this like 5 days ago when they first were released, but we do have plenty of time to make our choice on this. And now that we've got those free jewels for the Moogles, the Toon Moogles and Illustrated Moogles, it's finally time to talk about these because I want to break down everything from damage. If you have Xion or Kairi, are these metals important? What metals should you choose depending on what's going to be coming out and how important they're going to be long term, PvP wise, and a bunch of Keyblade setups. I want to talk about everything, guys, and I want to do it in sections. So it goes from like basic to Keyblade setups to so on, to try to help even those that are new to the series and want to know how to build a Keyblade. I won't touch too much on that, but just by watching this video, you guys will get a gist of how to build a proper Keyblade setup. So, now that my jaw's finally not hurting from the dentist yesterday, let's do this video, guys. First off, let's talk about the basics, okay? This is here for 19 days. 19 days, guys. That means you have plenty of time to make your decision on this. If you want to complete stuff right now, there's nothing to complete. There's nothing that you need in the quest section to complete it. But first off, the reason is that we just got a total of 5,000 jewels. Now that is minimum. Well, no, 4,000 is minimum if you only got one Illustrated Moogle, but there was enough to get 2 Illustrated Moogles if you did it every day and had bad luck, like I did, because I also missed a couple days. So 5,000 jewels plus Cheer Thief, 5,500. That is almost halfway to getting one of the stained glass metals because the first draw was free. Now that we got that out of the way, the first question you guys got to ask yourself, do you have Kairi or Xion, and are these a replacement for them? In some scenarios, these can stand alone, be a beast, and don't need Kairi or Xion. That depends on HP recovery, that depends on enemies having counters, and restoring your own gauges. If you guys don't need any of those for certain quests, then these can be by themselves without a Kairi or Xion. But I do believe that they complement each other very, very nicely. Now, Keyblade setups, I'm not going to talk about it just yet, but Kairi and having one of the key arts in either slots in the beginning is a way to go. If you guys look at all my Keyblade setups, this is the basic. Your first 2 slots of your Keyblade, doesn't matter what color they are, doesn't matter the multipliers, are meant for buffers. If you look at all my Keyblade setups that are actually legit, you'll see Kairi in the starting and a Copycat Metal, and this doesn't do any damage, if any, depending on the quest, where your real damage starts on slot 3 and onwards. Then you guys got to look at like any other Keyblade setup I have here. It's the same thing over and over and over, but that's where these metals come in and change that. But this is for the basics for anyone that's new. You don't need strong metals in the first 2 slots to complete a lot of these events. We've completed all these events without the first 2 slots actually doing damage. Now that is the past and the present, but we don't know what the future holds, and that's why I want to put so much emphasis on this part, because currently the meta was 2 first slots are just meant for your buffers. As you guys can see, I have power metals on magic slots and magic metal on a power slot. They're not meant for damage. All your damage metals are these 4 metals right here, including your friend metal. That is the basics, guys. The basics is, if you have Kairi or Xion, these do complement each other in scenarios they don't need to be, and they can just be handled by themselves depending on the Keyblade and the situation. Second part of the basics is, these are 7 upright strength or 7 reverse strength up, depending on which one you guys get. Now, currently in North America, there is the magic and there is the power. The speed is going to be released on May 4th in the JP version, so that means we should be getting them very, very soon as well. So with that being said, that's a very big key point, depending if you guys have a Kairi or Xion, or you have neither. If you guys don't have a Kairi or you don't have a Xion, I highly recommend you get one of these, and I highly recommend that you get both. Now, if you have a Kairi, I recommend getting one of the reverse metals, because you can go Kairi into one of the reverse metals on a Keyblade setup that has reversed and upright slots, and that way you'll have buffs for both. Or if you don't have Kairi on Xion, you can get 1 upright stained glass metal and 1 reverse stained glass metal, just to have that ×7 upright strength and ×7 reverse strength. They are standalone, really good for that. My main account, what you guys are looking at, I only own a Kairi EX, so I only have upright buffs, meaning my uprights Keyblade setups are my strongest, but there's a weakness in that because there is going to be quests and situations where reverse is going to be so much more important. So with that being in my head, I think I'm going to go towards a reverse one of these. I'm going to go for 2, but I am going to go for a reverse one just so I can get that ×7 reverse buff. It's really, really important, and when you combine the 2 together, Akari and one of those, you're going to have all the general defense down you need, plus if there's any reverse metals in my setup, they also get taken care of. It all depends on the situation, but if I ever want to make a reverse setup, I can just use that one stained glass metal, put it there, have my ×7, and have Kyrie just for restore my gauges or enemy counters, so on and so on. It's really important. If you don't have a Shion, grab a reverse strength metal out of the setup here. That's the second basic thing I want to talk about, guys, is that this is a good way to get your reverse setups to do a lot more damage. Even if you're not going to use it as a main damage dealer, even if you're not going to use it for a magic setup, grab the Vanitas. Even if you're not going to use it for a power setup, grab the Roxas. One or the other if you're just going for that ×7 reverse strength, which is really good in just one metal in one slot. That's incredible. We have to have extra attack on our Copycat Metals to copy our Kyrie X to just get ×6 upright strength, which is not even max at ×7, and that's if they don't increase the buff cap again. Remember that. If they increase the buff cap as well, I guess this is basic tip number 3, copying one of these metals, you're going to have the buff cap once it comes out. Just something to think about. Alright, so for the next part of this video, guys, we're going to talk about the stained glasses on Keyblades, what situations, what setups, what Keyblade do you guys go for, or just what stained glass metal should you choose depending on your Keyblade. This, again, will also help you build a Keyblade and know how the whole thing works. So, the first 3 I want to talk about are the basics, which is going to be the Treasure Trove, the Lady Luck, and the 3 Wishes. Now, these 3 Keyblades, guys, if you're new to the game, these are the ones that you're seeing. These Keyblades are basically obsolete when it comes to the best setups, the meta, having the high-end Keyblades. These ones are kind of there because that's what we started with, and they were good when they were there, but they are outdated now, and I don't recommend taking these Keyblades past level 25, because even at 25, you can see their multiplier slots are at 1.7, 2.4, the highest, and even at 35, you're looking at nothing here, guys. 2.3, 2.4, 2.5. These slots are very, very low. So I would ignore these 3 Keyblades altogether. The one exception to the beginning Keyblades is the Starlight. The Starlight does have decent multipliers and very, very good positions to get into different setups using these stained glass metals. But a level 35 Starlight is going to cost you 44 gems in total of each of the gems, the magic, speed, and power. Not 44 each, but a total of those 3 put together, 44 in total. It's a lot of gems. So with that being said, the level 25 of this Keyblade, if you don't level up, still has pretty decent multipliers, but not the best. Again, 35 is amazing how many Keyblade setups that can be done on this Keyblade. It's just a very heavy investment of 44 gems. So if you guys like those multiplier slots, if they match your Keyblades, then go right ahead. But Starlight does have one of the best setups because of Copycat Metals. Now, I have the Kyrie and the Roxas up here because I want to say the basics first. The basics is, the meta is, doesn't matter where your Kyrie is, you copy these first 2 slots. We talked about that, right? The same can go for the Roxas. As you guys can see here, this Keyblade setup can become a pure reverse Keyblade setup, and that's because of Copycat Metals. So if we look at the Copycat Metals, this is backward Copycat Metals. These are our choices for backward Copycat Metals, and as you guys can see in here is Kiar Bonds, which is a speed Copycat Metal. So a backwards Copycat Metal will copy the metal behind it. So the Keyblade slot behind it is a reverse power slot, which Roxas is reverse power. And then if we look at our forward Copycat Metals, we're going to have ourselves Antiform Sora here. HD Antiform Sora, which is going to copy forward. So then you guys can put whatever you want in this slot here for reverse power. Now again, these are your choices for reverse power. There is plenty of choices nowadays. That new Sephiroth, Scar, you guys got that Vexen for a defense setup. You can even use a second copy of the stained glass itself to do this, because the stained glass metal even though it does the most damage, I did that wrong, even though it does the most damage, and this goes for any of the stained glass metals, the multiplier doesn't drop down to 12.14 in the first couple of slots. It hits 12.14, I believe, in the 5th and pet slot. That's where you're going to see your worst one. Maybe even the 4th one, but I'm going to do some testing on that. I have done testing before on the axle that we got from the organization event. So if you want to see me going comparison from one Keyblade slot to the next and the next and the next, you see that the metal's power slowly decreases as it goes through the Keyblade slot. So obviously in the beginning, this goes for all the stained glass metals, 17.35 for the first slot, and then it probably drops down to like 15 or 16, and then 14, 13, and then 12. So you have lots of wiggle room, and with that wiggle room in there, guys, a 17.35 is huge for an AoE, but so is a 12.14. So even in the pet slot, all these metals will do amazing damage just because of how much it offers. But obviously with that 40% guilt right there, guys, increase, you want these more in the beginning and because of their multiplier. So we're going to try to fit them in the first 3 slots. That's the first thing. Get that out of your mind that it has to be in the beginning, but that's just for maximum output. So let's say you guys have Scar here, so you want to put Scar in that Keyblade slot. Now you have triple cast of Scar. Now this is the basics, and it's going to be really important for the rest of this video, is that even though we have triple cast of Scar, and we all know how powerful Scar is with the 21.9 multiplier, that is huge. Increase that with the 40% guilt, and you are just going into a beast of a metal that can destroy everything. Let's forget about the fact that he is AoE and all that, and let's just talk about how many times you guys can make a copy of this. Now you guys are saying, okay, well, that's neat. Now we don't need Kyrie. Kyrie, take away Kyrie for a second. This is just a pure power setup because we know Roxas here only takes care of power attributes, and now we have a magic slot here. That's again where the Keyblades, not the Keyblades, the Copycat Metals come into effect because they change a lot of these multicolor Keyblades into having monocolor. So you have 2 options, HD Nominee and Kingdom Hearts 2 Nominee. Now, out of all of this, it's really, really important to know that yes, you're going to have multiple Scars. Yes, you're going to have multiple of whatever's going to come out after that. So if I want to use another... Oh, let me reset that. If I want to use something like another Scar, if I have it, or a Sephiroth in the end, I can do so, which it'd probably be better to do this. So AoE damage right in the beginning, and a 2 big hitters, single or multi-targets in the end, which can just destroy a lot of setups. Now, this is just a setup. This is showing you how to build a Keyblade setup. But as you guys can see, this entire Keyblade setup is now reversed power. But you might be saying, whoa, those are amazing multipliers. You got to remember, though, that this Scar is a tier. It's a tier 7, meaning it has a lot of guild. So the way the math works, you guys see an initial metals multiplier is 7.30. That's huge. So 7.30, what you do is next, if the metal is fully guilted at tier 7, you're going to go 7.30 times 3, which gives you the 21.9. This is important for every Keyblade setup, guys. But if you look at the Copycat Metals, this is a downfall to this, which is not a big downfall, but it is a downfall. Because we're copying, let's say we're copying Scar with Key Art Bonds. Key Art Bonds is a tier 5. So that only means 150% guilt. So if you take Scar's 7.30 multiplier and you times it by 2.5, because this metal only goes up to 150% guilt, which means 2.5 when you're doing the math. If it was 180% guilt, you would do 2.8, and obviously the 200% guilt is going to give you the times 3. So that's where you look at the calculations, but that makes Scar with only a max multiplier of 18.25, which is still a huge multiplier, especially when you can compare it to these metals that are tier 8s. Their multiplier is a 17.35. So even though we're copying these metals with tier 5s, they are still huge multipliers. But that's Scar. If you were to take one of these metals and multiply it by that number, so 4.69 times 2.5, the max multiplier you would be getting off these metals is 11.725, guys. So it drops drastically when you look at it that way. This metal is going to go from a 17 multiplier down to 11.725, and even worse when it drops down to a higher slot being copied, because if we look at the 3.28 and times that by our 2.5, we're only getting a multiplier of 8. So in a sense, Copycat Metals make any setup work, but they also decreases the metal being copied. So that forward copy, the Nominate, is one of the best ones because she is a tier 7, and so is the Vanitas because he's a tier 7. So you are getting that full 300%, but then you start going into tier 6s, being the Antiform and the HD Shion, into a tier 5 at the Nominate and the backward Copycat Metals, besides the Riku, who is a tier 8. So your best Copycat Metal is HD Riku Replica. But that is going to be, just have it in your head that sure, you can copy all these metals, just remember they're losing a lot of power because of that. So be careful on which metals you are copying, because you might be making your Keyblade setup weaker compared to stronger. But in a sense, to make these metals work, this is what we have to do with Copycat Metals. Now, the Starlight was just an example to show you guys that even though the Starlight has multiple colors, Copycat Metals really help with these situations. So always aim to get Copycat Metals because they are meta, even if they're a tier 5. So with all that out of the way, let's go back to talking about Keyblade setups. So that's the basics. That's what you need to know in your mind. How do I change these Keyblades to help me? Now, like I said before, if you're not going to invest 44 gems into the Starlight, I would ignore it because even the multipliers are very low at 25. All these Keyblades in the beginning are low. Now, Olympia, Divine Rose, and the Moogle of Glory are going to be the 3 other Keyblades that have multiple colors that all you got to do is find out what you want to do. Now, that being said, if you guys paid attention to the Starlight in the beginning, I had Roxas on a slot that didn't mean anything. You're treating this metal as a Kairi or a Shion, just a buffer, and that comes into the sense of what skill to put on this. If you're just going to use these metals as buffers and not guilt them or anything, second chance wouldn't be a bad idea, but I still don't recommend it. If you need a second chance in your setup, you either grab your Kairi or your Shion and you put it in the next slot and have second chance on them, and still have these guys with an attack boost if they have a proper Keyblade slot, because they'll do damage. Higher tier enemies, if they don't have an attack boost on, even though if they're in a proper Keyblade setup, they're most likely going to do very minimum damage. So I don't recommend second chance on them, but it is an option if you're just using it as a buffer, like I said, for that ×7 reverse strength. But there's a lot of potential loss when you don't put an attack boost and put them on a proper slot. Even though it's not the beginning, this will still do a lot of damage. So with that being said, if you don't have a Kairi or Shion, just use a Copycat Metal like I just showed you, the Birth by Sleep metals. They're in the shop right now for very cheap, guaranteed every pull. All you need is one, not guilted, and put a second chance on one of those and copy one of these metals, because one of the issues I talked about in my previous videos during the update is that these guys are missing 3 general defense down, and that matters for high tier content like the Organization 13 event coming out on the 13th of every month. So in 11 days, we're going to be seeing another one of those, and you know how hard Vexen was. Vexen had general defense to start off with, and he had high defense. If you didn't have negative 60 traits, if you couldn't put his defense down, your first turn was looking really, really bad. So copying these metals will finish off that ×7 and also give you a place to put your second chance. So the only issue again is counters, HP recovery, and SP restore. That's another basic I want to talk about before we go into further Keyblade setups, guys. Even though we're not using Kairi or Shion to restore your Keyblades, there is metals that are attackers that also restore your gauges. Scar deals 5 hits, fills 3 gauges. So if we copy this metal a couple times, we're restoring 6 gauges, and if you put attack boost max with SP gauge 0 on here, he's going to cost nothing and restore you 3 gauges, which complements your beginning metals that are buffers, the stained glasses, and just, they only cost 2. They only cost 2. You're restoring 3 for each of the metals that have that. So Kairi and Sora here, Scar, King Triton, these are all heavy hitting metals you guys can use in the current meta because they're high multipliers and restoring gauges. So even if you don't have Kairi or Shion to restore your gauges, there's plenty of metals and future metals going to come out that restore gauges. So you guys don't have to worry about that too much, that Kairi doesn't restore your gauges because she's not on your Keyblade setup. These medals will do that for you. Same thing with medals that enemies counters. You're saying, well, Kairi and Xion, again, we have plenty of medals that are going to come out are currently in the game that do that. Kairi, the Kairi and Sora here, the foretellers. You have the old Toon medals that came out. You're going to have more medals in the future. This is a sort of like a future sight. The Warrior of Light and Terror also restores the enemy's counters. So enemy counter +2, which is incredible for a heavy hitter with that much damage. So we should be seeing more and more of that, guys. So SP restore and enemies counters can be arranged with the rest of your Keyblade setup, especially if you're copying those medals. All your medals that are attack medals are also going to end up increasing the enemy's counters or restoring your SP gauge, so you don't have to worry too much about no Kairi or Xion. So with all the basics out of the way, guys, let's talk about which one of these stained glasses do you guys have to care about the most. Now obviously you just take everything I just told you and apply it to Olympia and apply it to Divine Rose and Moogle of Glory. You're going to use Keyblades that really complement each other with whatever metal you use in the beginning. So if you do want to use some sort of reversed and upright, you guys can do that by using 2 of these metals. So I can go Aqua and I can go Roxas. Now I have magic buff, power buff, upright buff, and reverse buff, so I can use whatever metal I want here, whatever metal I want here, whatever metal I want here, without using Copycat Metals, guys. Because Roxas takes care of his power buffers, boom, power. Because Roxas takes care of power and Aqua takes care of upright strength, boom, upright power is taken care of. So technically the first 2 slots are being used properly. She's on a 1.7. Let me change the Moogle Glory to a level 35. She's on a 2.2 and Rox is on a 1.9, so they're going to be doing tons of damage because they're taking care of themselves. And then you guys can put whatever power metal on here, whatever magic metal you want here, and whatever power one you want here. I could show you metals, but it all depends what you guys have and what you want to pull for. But that is another basic setup for these metals. And again, there's plenty of metals to restore your gauges, and if you're not using attack metals that restore your gauges, just put attack boost max and SP gauge 0 on everything and you don't have to restore gauges. You just have to worry about those quests that have enemy counters, but again, there's plenty of attack metals that affect the enemy's counters as well. So that's another setup of using these metals. Have 1 of each of the buffers, and again, you can use 2 of these metals on these Keyblade setups and still have it for everything else. So Fairy Stars here, even though it has all these different colors, you guys can do something like Riku, Vanitas, and Ventus into whatever other metals you guys want, because now you have all the magic, you have all the power, you have the reverse and the upright. And you might be saying, well, there's a magic slot there. Copycat Metals, guys. Copycat Metals, forward copy, boom, you go into HD Antiform Riku, who copies whatever you guys want. So beautiful multipliers in the beginning, just doing damage, and carrying on, and you're golden. Then when you look at the Fairy Stars, one of my favorite Keyblades in this game right now because it is meta and it's huge. Whenever the multipliers don't drop that drastically from 17 to 12, so even though they're in deeper and deeper into the Keyblade, this whole entire Keyblade can be just pure stained glass metals if you look at this. Let's just say that's the upright speed one and that's the reverse speed one. So we're going from a 17 multiplier all the way to the whole thing. Every metal fits on the Fairy Stars. Every one of the stained glass metals fits on the Fairy Stars. So you can have a stained glass Keyblade, which is amazing. I think it looks freaking awesome. I was so happy when I saw this. I was like, it fits beautifully on huge multipliers, even though they all suffer a little bit more as they go. With all that buffs and debuffs, just having a Keyblade set of purely this, I'm pretty sure you'll pass a ton of content. Again, you have no heals, you have no SP restore and all that, but it's just pretty badass to see that all your stained glass metals can fit on one Keyblade. But like I said before, the copy metal can copy whatever you guys want, being the highest multiplier. Even if it's not gilted, it's going to do so much damage right there. Just make sure that it's a power or a speed. So these are just a breakdown, guys, I want to show you of every one, because everything else is straightforward, and I talked about it in my update video. If you guys want to use a power setup, which is Fenrir, and Fenrir is the one I'm going for, so I'm going to grab myself a Riku, and I'm also going to grab myself a Roxas or Vanitas or the new reverse speed one, depending on what we got to look forward to, but I'm going to wait. The 100% one I'm getting is going to be Riku, because, like I said before, to complement that problem where the 3 general defense down isn't there, I'm just going to use a Key Art Sky to copy my Riku. So I have 2 heavy hitters right in the beginning, and then I go into my whole setup of everything else. The last thing I want to talk about that was in my update video, but since we're talking about stained glasses in this, I want to talk about a perfect setup. And this is one of the situations where this can be a perfect setup, because damage 100%. Your first 2 metals are going to do damage, where if you use Xion or Kairi, you wouldn't be able to do damage here, guys. So this attack boost, this was attack boost, then we go into this next slot here, and this is where it comes to be more of either you were really lucky, or you save the jewels, or you pay for the game to having really good metals for this setup. So the best setup that I'm going to be using is going to be the Cloud into Xion, my forward Copycat Metal, copying my Warrior of Lights, and backwards copying with the Riku. So right here, guys, you're going to see my perfect setup that I'm going to be using on my main account according to my metals, because not everyone's going to have every single metal in the game, and you can't just make any of these setups. So it's really hard to talk about what setups to go for. You got to look at what's actually in your inventory. But all these metals are in my main account's inventory, and this is going to be one of my main Keyblade setups. Obviously, to make this work, I'm going to need SP gauge zeros on my Keyblade, but with this setup, my Warrior of Light is going to increase the enemy's counters by 6 right here. The only 3 metals that are not going to do that are these ones, but 6 hits, and I believe 3 hits. That is a lot of hits, and the Vexen metal had 15 counters above his head, so that is going to be hurting a little bit, but that's to go again. Depending on what quest you're facing, you might not need that. And if I ever need a second chance on this Keyblade setup, I'll remove this one, take this out, and bring in my extra attack or non-extra attack Copycat Metal that has second chance on it, just to copy the general defense down multiple times, or even his debuffs multiple times, because enemies do start with debuffs. So I can switch this Keyblade setup around as much as I want. This works for any of the other Keyblades, guys. That's what you guys want to look for when you're looking at the other ones. When we talk about the new metals coming out, we do have our backwards Copycat metals like bonds, so on and so on. Now it's just becoming repetitive, but it all depends on what you guys have. But this is how you want to look at these stained glass metals. They do not have to be in the first slots. They do not have to be by themselves to replace Kairi or Xion, but they can. They're good as a combination. They're good as using one of each. There are so many situations, and this is probably only going to be part 1 of my video for stained glasses, because the more I practice with these, the more I own, the more setups I'm going to use. And I will I will show you guys, once I make enough pulls to pull all these metals, I'm going to show you damage comparisons when it comes to metals like the 358 over 2 days Riku compared to the Aqua on the 3rd slot. Aqua obviously wins when it comes to that because of how much she has going for her with the general defense and all that. She is at par or just a little bit better than Riku when it comes to that. But Riku might have better traits, but with guaranteed traits every pull, I'm pretty sure your Aqua is going to kick out that 358 over 2 days Riku. So I will be talking about that, actually showing Keyblade setups of my own and damage output as we go through once I start pulling them. Because right now you can see my current setups. Well, I guess not, because I fooled around with the high score challenge. I no longer have my setups. I destroyed them. But you guys know, and you've seen my videos, how my setups work. They're going to change with these stained glass metals. And don't forget, PvP wise. But I think I did a good job on this video. I know there's a lot of things I didn't touch on. I know there's a lot of more setups you can look at. I probably forgot some because this video was really, really long, guys. I apologize how long it was, but there's so many situations and so many scenarios, so many possibilities with these metals, and I highly recommend that everybody have one upright and one reverse of these metals, because they will change your game even if you have Kairi or Xion. It's a game changer in the sense of just the buffs and debuffs that they have alone. And again, for the PvP, if we can't use multiple copies of Kyrie or Xion on our Keyblades, we're gonna have to rely on other buffers, and these are the other buffers with damage. If you want to be competitive in the first month of PvP, I highly recommend you grab one of these. So if I did miss anything, if you want to add something, because I guarantee you there's so many things I did not talk about. That's how much possibilities these metals have. Leave it down in the comment section for the rest of the community. Just be like, hey, this setup also works. Hey, this actually really works. Because I bet you when I turn off this video right now, I'm going to be like, oh, I could have added this. I could have added that. So leave it down for the rest of the community down there, guys. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Keep on smiling, and I'll see you in the next one.